more will be here, but be about 5:30, as I understand. So we'll call study session together for our December 5th meeting. Thank you all for being here. The only two items on the agenda, council, that we have for our study session are appearances and the agenda review. So we'll start with appearances. Anyone here to appear before the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Andrew? That's got to be you.
What am I supposed to do?
Right to the podium, name, address, and let us have it.
Okay, well, probably everybody knows why I'm here anyway, but my name's Andrew Bard. I'm here to try and get the chicken ordinance changed in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. As it sits right now, as you guys probably already know, we are not allowed to have any chickens on private property in Cape Girardeau. The intention is we would like to copy, almost word for word, the ordinance of Columbia, Missouri. Does anybody want a copy of it?
Got it.
Okay, well, then I can put those to the side.
All right, council?
I'd like.
Okay. So, anybody else?
Yeah, but run them down. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got three.
Okay.
You already sent one to me.
Yeah. Okay, so the only thing I would add to this, word for word copying is fine with me. There may be some variances on how, where we place our coop versus where they put it, but that's for you guys to worry about. The only thing I would like to add to this ordinance, other than copying it word for word, is I would like to add any chickens that are in the city limits of Cape Girardeau are required to have one wing clipped. That's going to cut down on an issue of the chicken getting out of the pen. So if we're worried about chicken getting out of the pen, you had mentioned that to me. With one wing that works and one wing that doesn't, they're not going to get any flight. So I would like to add that to this ordinance. Otherwise, I'd like it word for word. Questions?
Okay.
Does anybody want a copy of the petition that we passed around, the 192 physical signatures or the 415 that are in Cape Girardeau?
Sure.
Electronic, like those?
Mhm.
I don't have another copy of these.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I have not gone through every address to verify.
Okay.
So we got the petition signed. Oh, and here's all the comments. I don't know if I read all of them, but anyway, these are the comments on the electronic side.
Okay.
So, sorry. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Council?
I'd like to hear from a more of an educational point of view than an ordinance point of view of why this is important to you, and why you think it's important to other people who signed your petition.
Well, let's start with the other people. Anyone here is in support of the chicken ordinance, please stand up. I'd say probably another 15 to 20 or so that are at work right now.
Okay.
So as far as thank you.
Everybody live in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
So as far as important to other people, I can't really comment to that other than people have just told me this is what they want. Me personally, I had 6 chickens. I got them in July. I wanted to see if I wanted them before I came in petition for them. So I had 6 chickens. I was getting 5 to 6 eggs a day, 150 eggs a month. I don't know if you've noticed my weight, but I eat a lot of eggs. So every morning, literally every morning, I was eating eggs out of my backyard for breakfast. I know where the eggs came from. I know what they've been fed. I know what they've been around. I know how they've been treated. And they were better. They just were. I will say this, when I first got them, I told my daughter, I said, don't name them. You never name your food. When they stop producing, capitalism sets in, we're going to eat them. 2 weeks later, I was riding around in my yard with a chicken on my shoulder, and I would never eat her. So it took about 2 weeks, and they became pets. So there's a personal aspect to them. There's a therapeutic aspect. So me, I can only speak for myself on this. I own Computer 21. I do a lot of work virtually. I'm never really in the moment anymore. So if you want to get, let's get a little existential. So I'm never really in the moment. I'm always somewhere else. For 15 minutes in the morning and for 15 minutes in the evening, I got to be right there feeding my chickens, taking care of their coop, making sure they were healthy, they were happy, feeding them blueberries. And I'm not a real big dog guy, but for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, I got to ground myself a little bit and just exist. So to me, it was nice. It was just nice. That's about all I can tell you. I mean, there's a huge movement for knowing where your food comes from. And this is going to give us an opportunity to realistically, one meal a day, know exactly where your food is coming from, exactly where your food has been, what it's eaten, and how it's been handled. So there's the why. What about concerns? Anybody have any concerns?
I've had constituents contact me about the sanitary issues, and one of them, I think, emailed the whole councilwoman in particular about the risk of salmonella, and they had links to the Center for Disease Control, some other articles on chickens that are kept in urban environments. So I'm not very well educated on chickens in an urban environment, and I'm having to quickly become educated on it, if you will.
What do you, with the droppings, how do you get rid of those periodically?
Was that my 5 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead and answer the question. That's fine.
Okay.
As far as the sanitary, how do you clean up? How often?
I clean my cage sometimes twice a week, usually at least once a week, as far as like get down and just clean it. It got a washing usually every 2 to 3 days, just a general washing out. You can scoop them up. You can put them in plastic bags, just like a cat. Scoop them up, put them in a plastic bag if you want. I kept some for compost for my garden. Some of it went into the trash. There is a risk of salmonella. If you want me to answer that question too, there's absolutely a risk of salmonella. There's a risk of salmonella from buying an egg down at the grocery store if I eat it raw.
Sure.
But if you want, I can give you the Illinois Department of Health and the CDC reports on urban chicken farming. Both of them pretty clear, and the risk is limited to the person who handled the chicken if they don't wash their hands. That's the basics of it. And that goes for histoplasmosis too, which other people have been worried about. So.
Has the city of Columbia had issues with neighbors?
I am so glad you said that.
You know, because you've received a decent number of signatures, so let's be frank, there's 39,000 other people that live in the city of Cape Coral who aren't affected.
So let's talk about City of Columbia. I emailed back and forth with Stephanie Browning, who's in charge of, she's the director of, let's get her official title, which I don't have on me. She is the director of the health department for the City of Columbia, which apparently is a joint effort between the city and the county. So she handles all the calls, and her nurses handle all the calls. I will highlight some of the things that she told me. Let's see. The communicable disease nurses have never received a call related to a chicken-related disease. In February, we will have 7 years of experience and history with the ordinance. 7 years in February, not a single disease-related issue. Animal control has averaged between 10 to 15 calls per year related in some way to chickens. Typical calls are for roosters, which are not allowed. It is important to note that we have never had a call related to sanitary conditions or smells in 7 years. Come February. If we want to talk about how many calls the city is going to receive, if you assume a similar adoption rate, we are a college town, they are a college town, we live in Missouri, they live in Missouri. I mean, we can't get much more apples to apples. They get, calling the police department, they had 44 calls in 3 years. So you assume 15 calls a year, let's say. We are 33.7% of the size of them. If you assume similar adoption rates, which is all we really can do, we're looking at 5 calls a year. A third the size, a third the calls. I don't see it being a burden on the city. Now, and to me, the city of Columbia can be summarized thusly on her email. To be honest, I had some concerns myself. Fortunately, my worries were for nothing.
So a question I raised to you previously was about the issue of abandoning.
Sure.
Abandoning both hens past the laying age as well as roosters. You know, if you get a dozen chicks and you haven't done anything to determine otherwise, probably half of them will be roosters. And cities I've seen, Oviedo, Florida, I sent you an article about Sacramento, obviously, and I've seen in Hawaii as well. Again, bragging about my trip to Hawaii, feral chickens. And so what do you say to, not to the 90% who would do it correctly and would take care of their animals and adopt them as pets after the laying stage, but to the people who would just let them loose on the street? I mean, is the approach then to say, Humane Society, you have to take all these just like you do our dogs and chickens? Do you have nuisance officers becoming butchers? I mean, what do you see as a practical, if we
Okay.
have roosters and hens in the Cape that are let loose by disgruntled owners, I suppose?
Sure. Stop anybody from going completely outside the rules. I mean, that's with anything. I mean, you couldn't stop me from having chickens in my backyard till I had a dumpster in my road and you found them. So, I mean, that's just how it is. But I will say this, and Tim, wherever he's at, he has a list of what, 12?
I have listed two names of people
Oh, I
that
thought you had a
take
lot more.
roosters or spin hens.
I've got 3 farms between Friedheim and Oran, or Oak Ridge. And keep in mind, I only called 3. All 3 have said they would take any roosters the city of Cape has, and they would take any extra hens that we have. So as far as disposal goes, we have an option for them. I can't answer the question of what happens if people just don't care. I don't think anybody can ever answer that
I
question.
say that kind of boils down to a little bit of common sense. If somebody's gonna go to the trouble of getting chicken, they're gonna figure out the correct way of dealing with it.
I mean, we have the option. We have community support. We have people in the county who are willing to take these chickens. And that's exactly what Columbia does. That's why I call these farms. They take them. They don't have a problem with it. All we got to do is call them. So now I will answer another question. This is something I've learned since we spoke last. I was concerned that the first year that we were going to have people go out there and buy a bunch of chickens because it's Easter and, hey, I can just stick them in my backyard, and they're going to find out they have about 50% of roosters. And we're going to have a problem with roosters the first year. I have since found out that at least with the breederys, hatcheries, whatever you want to call them, that deliver to Buckeyes, they now have in the last 2 years an electronic sorting system, which they are telling me is 100% accurate on whether or not it's male or female. Before it was all just, look, somebody looked at them, they sorted them. And if they're too young, they can't tell. But at least according to Buckeyes, they can tell with 100% accuracy whether or not that hen is going to be a hen or a rooster. And that's early in the season. So I'm not as concerned about having roosters early in the season as I was before. And I learned that yesterday. So.
Well, we, as you know, considered this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and it became a controversial thing.
Yeah.
And we ended up with split votes, and it ended up down. One of the concerns in the city is we're not going to add to our bureaucracy and hire additional nuisance people. It'll be probably a complaint only if it ends up doing it that way. But we got to listen to all our citizens. So
Yeah.
we'll do that.
Well.
And we're hearing both sides.
Mhm.
And I want to make one point. I had seen this chicken coop of Andrew's back in June and was actually very impressed I don't know if he, at that point in time, I wasn't there to check out and inspect the coop. But I was very impressed on how clean it was, how orderly it was. And I'm in support. I've talked to people who in different cities in New York, Illinois, and Missouri, and have seen where this can be a real benefit to individual families and getting back to a more, even if it's just a little bit, to a self-sufficient lifestyle. And even if it's just on eggs. And the eggs were very good too. So maybe that's bribery, I don't know.
Well, well, we lost that vote. So, what are you gonna do? So that's a great way to excuse yourself. Do you guys care if I just very briefly tell you some cities that are close by that allow chickens? We're talking 10 names.
Okay.
Poplar Bluff, Springfield, Kansas City, St. Louis allows up to 4 without permit. Perryville, Jackson, Scott City. You want to talk about a subdivision? I mean, not all of St. Louis allows. Every borough is allowed to do their own. But
Yeah.
we're talking Ladue, Chesterfield. We're better in those. I mean, these are people who I would have never thought would allow chickens in their backyard, and they're allowing chickens. We are the only one that I could find around here that don't allow this. It's kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. And if we're talking about 5, let's say we have twice as many. Let's say we are 3 times worse than Columbia. We're going to get 15 calls a year. That's all we're talking about. The city of Cape takes roughly 8,000 nuisance calls a year, the number I was told by a nuisance officer. We're not even 0.2% if we're 3 times worse than the people of Columbia, Missouri. I don't see how this is going to add any overhead. I don't see how it's going to be.
Okay, very good.
And I will also say, since this has come out, I know of 12. This is the email from, I only have 2 copies, sorry.
That's fine.
From Stephanie down at the
Columbia.
Yeah.
I know of 12 coops in this town right now that have been there over 10 years each that nobody in town knows about. If they were a nuisance, those coops would have been shut down a long time ago.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Andrew. for
Okay,
being here.
next.
I'd just like to add that I'm a neighbor. I live 2 houses
Wait,
away.
wait, just a minute. Any other questions, Andrew, from, any comments?
Now,
Okay.
Don't accidentally lose that physical petition. That's all I got. Okay, so
Here, we got it. Where is it? Down there?
Yeah, we're passing the comments that way.
And here's the
now.
comments. Yeah. Yes, sir. Come on
Yes,
up.
I live-
No, come on up, Ned. Yeah, your name.
I
and
live
address.
2 houses away.
And your name?
Brad Hines.
Okay.
And, my only concern would have been smell, and I've never smelt anything from the coops on my property. Or when I'm at Andrew's house in his yard, have I ever smelt anything whatsoever? So, and all the neighbors we've talked, and none of us have ever had a problem with barge chickens.
Okay, very good. I think if you got Bellevue Street, you got a pretty good,
Do you have a clarification? I think we do allow chickens in our ag zone.
Yeah, I wanted to make a correction on that. He'd stated that there is nowhere in the city that they are allowed, and we have 2 agricultural zones.
zones in the city, yeah. Okay, anyone else to speak on any other issue?
Oh, other issues?
Oh, no, this issue. I mean, we don't have time to listen to all of you, but anything new, well, not a lot of repeats, but anything new.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. I'll just yell. Cheryl Donovan, I live at 2449 Janet Drive.
Janet, okay.
I'm an animal lover. I even love the chickens that I had briefly. My son is a police officer and he said, "Mom, get rid of those. I'm going to get in trouble." So I had to. Easy to find a farm though, by the way, that would take them. Anyway, if you are an animal lover, you would not like the traditional cage situation that layers are put into in commercial egg sales. The average size of the bottom of the cage is the size of a piece of typing paper. The layer cannot turn around, cannot move its wings, cannot do anything but just sit there and lay eggs until it dies. And it's a rather cruel way to get eggs. So backyard chickens is at least more humane than that. And besides that, they do a terrific job of eating up your Japanese beetles. And I clipped the wings of mine and they never went anywhere. And the neighbors, I thought the neighbors would probably be not too much in favor of them. I know, just because they were chickens. But I had an elderly neighbor, and every day he would come out, he would stand by the fence. And if the chickens weren't out, he'd say, "Where are the chickens? Where are the chickens?" So it was like a nice way to bring the neighborhood together.
Very
Thanks.
good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Mike Well, 316 Merriweather. Yeah, the commercial business, and I grew up with 8,000 in 4,000 cages until I was about 12 or 13. I know that business only too well. I've scooped lots of poop and candled lots of eggs, and it was much better then. We had 2 to a cage and they could turn around and so forth. But I've also looked at films pirated in Tyson's, and you would not like to see what's going on in our commercial business with chickens. It isn't pleasant. So this is an opportunity, reiterating to people, to do something about that. It's growing across the country. You know that. Andrew's got it documented. And I think that any law with so little offense that we continue to enforce, or that we continue to have on the books, encourages scofflaws. And it already is. Andrew knows 12. There are many more than that. I've off and on enjoyed eggs from neighbors, or I should say people in town, since I moved here in 92. There are a lot of people that have chickens. And what we do with this is anytime you have a law where something popular is going on and it's not hurting anybody, you don't help you don't help the rule of law. And so I think that's another good reason that we probably need to look at changing this, considering the way it's growing and the difficult nature of our economy, the undetermined nature of where our economy is going. This is preparation for people to do a better job of taking care of themselves if we have to do more of that.
Yes, sir. Dressed with a t-shirt.
Yes, I'm Timothy Ward. I live at 2604 Melrose here in Cape. I have had chickens since 2005 until just recently, when an animal control officer told me that I could get a $150 ticket for having them. But during the time I've had them, I never once had a single complaint from any neighbor. Never had a problem at all. I grew up in Marble Hill, and when I was growing up, many people had city chickens in town. It's part of a trend toward urban farming and locally produced food under humane conditions. So I hope you'll seriously consider this.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Can I ask for one clarification? real
Sure.
quick? I forgot to mention this earlier. When you guys get ready to pass this, I would like it not to go into effect till April 1st. I'd like some time to run some classes at Shawnee, get Orson on board, maybe get some PSAs out on River Radio in Southeast Missouri to teach people, just some general ideas, get some education out first.
Okay.
So if we could just not push it till April 1st, I think that'd be good.
Okay.
So.
Anyone else? Anyone else on another? Yes, sir.
My daughter really wants me to raise my hand. So, I'm Jay Holman, live at 676 Cloverdale Ranch Road, and I guess as a parent, and I'm brave enough to bring kids here. It's really nice to have the chickens because the kids love them. They're teaching them responsibility. They have to feed the chicken. It's producing something. So it's not only are you giving something, but you're getting something back. So we're in favor of it, obviously, and would like serious consideration.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very
Got our
good.
vote.
Anyone else on any subject other than chickens? Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name is Henry Terry. I live at 3833 Eagle Ridge Drive here in Cape. And I've been kind of looking in the paper a little bit and kind of following a little bit about the new concerns about the abatement process and everything. And I just kind of, I don't know if I've seen every paper that discussed everything or not. So I just kind of wanted to know if I could get clarity on what exactly we are proposing to do, just so I can better understand and if there's something that and from what I have read, there's some things that in that we are expected to be responsible for, but there's some ways that it could be handled a little better to make things a little bit easier for us, because currently on some things our hands are tied. So I just wanted to get clarity on that. If you guys could share what you are proposing in that your ordinance.
Yeah, we'll be glad to sit down with you and review the total ordinance, and our goal in this whole thing is not to shut anybody down.
Right.
And we've heard and found that in fact is true in areas that have similar ordinances. We're protecting are looking to protect chronic nuisances in living conditions, in drugs, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, it's been out. We've had the ordinance. It's been the first reading. Tonight's our second and third reading. It'll go into effect in 10 days. If it passes, if the second and third passes tonight. I don't know how much you've read of it. Now, I can't read the whole ordinance here tonight, but we'd be glad to sit down with you. Staff would be glad to sit down with you and review the whole thing and answer any questions that you have. If you have any specific question right now.
Alex is here and he would be glad to meet with you.
Have any real specific question about any part of the ordinance?
Yes, I have some concerns about the shutting properties down for 1 year based upon someone else's judgment. You know, I know you mentioned something about, from what I understand, if you have 3 abatements with the same property within a year, you're looking to shut that property down for a year and it won't be able to rent it. Also, if someone comes along and sells drugs or manufactures drugs or something in one of your properties, it was mentioned about taking that property offline for a year too. Now, if you go to shutting properties down, then that may bring hardships on some. Also, if your property shut down for a year, more than likely your insurance company is gonna drop you, and when you're down for a year, more than likely you're gonna have some broken windows. So that's one of my concerns there, as well as if you have any mortgages, well, you won't be able to pay your mortgage. So you kind of it may be helping the city in one way, but it could be a hardship with landlords. And I think one of the questions was asked, is that gonna, I think it was mentioned also that you're gonna do that to property owners in a situation like that. So basically you take someone that it's a property owner and kind of make them homeless for a year if they can't stay in their own property. So that's a thing that I wondered about on that one.
We need to get you an appointment with Alex McElroy and sit down and make yourself comfortable with this, because we aren't going from A to Z like you're saying.
That's the maximum. That's a maximum penalty that could be.
After many opportunities to fix whatever the issue is.
Okay.
Many.
Because I read it all in the paper and it didn't say after many opportunities.
Well, Mr. Chair, the important part, I think, to take away from it is that this is where the property poses a risk to public safety. So the nuisance abatement officer through the municipal court is not tied to being forced to shut that property down. It's being judged by the city manager and by city officials, and it's when there is a public safety threat, which occurs a lot of the time. But there were a lot of landlords that were in support of actions such as this, because there were not enough things that could be done merely, we have other issues besides the safety of the structure. If someone's letting people live in their property and manufacture drugs in our neighborhoods, frankly, in my opinion, they need to be shut down. We don't need those people living in the city of Cape. And frankly, they need to be homeless or homeless somewhere else than manufacturing drugs in our city. And I feel rather strongly about that. So nowhere are we requiring public officials to shut property down because a tenant dumped trash in the front yard, for example, and property owners such as yourself were cited for it. But it allows for some judgment and flexibility to be used, which I think most of us do appreciate.
But if those things are happening, it doesn't automatically come in to a property owner and say, we're shutting you down.
Right.
There are avenues to fix the issue and timeframes that you need to get more comfortable with a meeting with Alex McElroy, that we can't really answer all your questions here. But it isn't what you're assuming is that we get a call, so we come shut you down for a year. No.
There's a hearing and
Hearings.
the goal is to abate the nuisance. And abating the nuisance, that's the last the last thing of total frustration you would use to abate that nuisance. If you have people making meth in the house, well, how do you abate that nuisance? You get rid of the people. You get them out of there. That takes care of it. And then you can rent it to somebody else. It's that simple.
Well, that sounds.
Wait, sir, we need to get you a meeting with Alex McElroy, really. Rather than, we can't answer all your questions here. I would appreciate your concern. And if you would leave your contact information with staff before you leave, they'll be in touch with you in the morning.
Alex can maybe talk with you right now.
And could maybe talk with you now. We got the ordinance and we can walk you through it.
So you're saying that basically it's a done deal? There's no.
Well, we got to vote on second and third ordinance. We voted on the first ordinance 2 weeks ago. First reading of the ordinance 2 weeks ago. This second and third reading is tonight, and then it goes into effect 10 days.
And I would be happy to meet with you as well, Mr. Terry. I can tell you that staff and the council has worked for months on making sure that this ordinance is exactly what Kate needs, and I think you'll see how it benefits you. Now, you may not. You may learn more about it and still disagree with it. A lot of it comes from property owners who frankly think it's okay to be a chronic nuisance to the property owners that are around them, or think that it's okay to be in the business of profiting from renting to criminals in the city of Cape who engage in criminal behavior, and I don't mean keep chickens. Specific regarding the manufacture and distribution of illegal drugs.
Okay, I don't know
But
if
the
any.
city has worked for months and months and months, and not to, not to dismiss your concerns. That's not what any of us are trying to do. But I think Mr. Cunningham has had to look at this from absolutely every possible angle. And if he has any further comments as well, I think it's important that those.
Well, and I'll just add that there was an earlier version that had fewer protections for landlords, fewer protections for renters, and I think those have been added subsequently because of legitimate questions like the one you raised. So there are more protections, more ability to appeal, more time, more discretion, as the city manager Mayor pointed out, than in the original version. And so I think you'd be pleased to see that you're protected, as well as the citizens of Cape Girardeau, through this expanded and revised version.
So I guess the ordinance and everything was completed and you guys reviewed it. Has anybody else reviewed it other than the city council? We looked at it.
Staff, our legal counsel?
Anybody?
We shared it with the executive committee of the landlord association.
All the landlord association has reviewed it. It's been on the website. It's been available to all the community.
We discussed it at a study session 3 meetings ago. And then we had the first reading last meeting, and then now
it's the second, third reading tonight. So it's traveled for months.
And as you pointed out, there have been stories in the southeast Missouri as well, so it has been out in discussion.
Yeah,
I think to summarize in one sentence, the part that there may be disconnect on is that the property being shut down is not being done as in lieu of a fine or as punishment. It is only when that's necessary to actually abate the nuisance. So nobody's going to come and shut your property down for a year as a way to punish you. It's because there are chronic criminal nuisances that are a threat to public safety in that neighborhood, and repeated attempts to absolve the neighborhood of those criminal nuisances have not worked. And the only thing that could then work is to shut down that specific property. So I think differentiating between an action that's being taken to mitigate the effects of that criminal nuisance and a punishment, it has to be pointed out that those are two totally separate things.
I'm not in agreement with criminals or with manufacturing of drugs or anything like that myself either. It's just all I had to go on was what I read in the paper.
And
Well, that's why I really would like, Mr. Terry,
Uh,
to have you sit down and review the ordinance word by word and get our professional staff's
What?
interpretation through for your own good.
Okay, what if it's something that I feel that is,
When we pass ordinances are always due to review and subject to review and revision.
Well, and
We do
and
that all the time.
furthermore, technically, this issue should be getting brought up at a 7 o'clock meeting, and you could have another opportunity
Yeah.
to speak then.
Yeah.
If you choose to talk to Alex immediately, if he's available, because we'd be voting on it at the 7 o'clock.
okay,
meeting.
Joe, I'll
Before
shut
then,
up. I'll talk to
So
Alex.
you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't get a chance to bring those issues up then.
So who do I talk to?
Right here.
He's trying to sneak out.
Interestingly enough, we talked about Columbia tonight. Columbia has a very, very similar ordinance to this chronic nuisance ordinance that we have. Alex talked with their folks there, asked the same question that you talked about. How many of these have you done?
Chicken criminal nuisances that they have?
Well, it was a little different question, but he asked them, how many properties have you shut down for the year in order to get compliance? And they've had it for how many years, Alex?
2006.
2006. So they've had almost a decade. Zero. They have used the nuclear option, if you will, or the shutting down 0 times because they haven't had to. Because when they sit down and have the hearing, or even before the hearing, they find a way to abate the nuisance without that. So that's what we want. In the same regard here. I understand your concern, and I hope in the communication it can get you can get comfortable with it. If not, come back and express your concerns.
Anyone else on any other subject?
My name is Fred Barnett. I'm a property owner and also a member of the board of directors of the CALA organization, the Landlord Association. We've worked extensively with the city, and as far as we're concerned, extremely successfully. We have changed the attitude of the landlord being guilty and always wrong to a situation that the staff has been super to work with. They have an open mind, and if it's a landlord problem, then so be it. It's a landlord problem. None of us, be it board members, want to have the kind of thing happening that does happen in some places. We'd like to see it stopped for all of our good. At the same time, the staff, which I have to commend, has been exceedingly easy to work with. And what we see as a group is that this is a last resort. This is not something we're looking at day one. We didn't look at it as something that was being thrust upon us. This is a way that if there's no other way to clean up a problem that's a danger to society as us and our other tenants, this is the last resort. It's a method, a vehicle to stop something that we as tenants, our landlords, may not be able to control. Sometimes we just can't control everything that happens. And city seems to be very aware of this, and they've been great to work with as far as we're concerned. They always have. And that's my information and position on it. And I think it's pretty much the position of the board of the Landlord Association Cape Girardeau. So I don't think this is an issue that any landlord should really be afraid of at all. I think the city has worked to work with us. They've always come to us and said, we have a problem. We've looked at it. They've worked with us, and we've come to some agreement or a situation that seems to be a win-win situation for all. That's what we believe we have now.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other subject? Okay, take us through the agenda, please.
All right, our invocation tonight is Mr. Taylor. He'll be here. And then communications and reports, but no presentations. Communication and reports tonight, council. Are there those you want to have? I know, talk about Pearl Harbor.
Yes, like to make it known that Wednesday at 11 a.m. at the riverfront, I think it's either the VFW and the American Legion or one of the two are having a ceremony commemorating the Pearl Harbor event and laying a wreath into the river, and there'll be some veterans there. So I'd encourage anybody who can to come by and support the veterans who will be showing up to commemorate the start of World War II.
Flags will be at half staff. Other communications?
We have the Missouri Highway Transportation Commission in town today and tomorrow. They'll be meeting tomorrow at the Osage Center. We have a breakfast at 7:15. They have a closed session. I think the regular session is at 10 o'clock. It's very good to have them out and about rather than just in the Capitol doing all their work, to have them in southeast Missouri. So we'll be there to address them and meet with them tomorrow morning. Marcia Ritter, I was out of town last week and missed the loss of Marcia Ritter, but would want tonight during the session to show my sympathy for the loss of Marcia, the support that she showed her husband as he and I and Bob Blank worked our way through, of course, several years of school board. The missionary work that Marcia and C. John did throughout the world. They were both great humanitarians, and of course, her dedication to her community and being a dedicated community leader was, it's a real loss, and she dedicated her life to the good of mankind. I think that's all I have, except the openings of the, who wants to announce the openings of the, of Independence and the Hopper? They're open.
I drove Independence today, it opened, and it's really designed well.
Yep. Yeah, it sure will. Good. The center's been adopted by Montgomery Bank, and the rock is in. The plantings won't go in until spring, but it's going to be a nice addition to our city and relieve a traffic backup that Independence has gotten real busy, and that'll flow very well. Others, anybody else?
I have Heat Cape Beautiful. I was at that meeting last week, and also the Cape Girardeau Public Schools Strategic Planning meeting.
Okay.
Last Wednesday.
Good.
I'd like to touch on that.
All right, very good.
I want to mention the planning session I attended at the Chamber of Commerce with downtown, Old Town Cape, as well as Main Street, Missouri, looking at revitalization of our downtown and the ongoing success, and then where to go in the future.
Okay.
I believe I'll mention, and I might ask the chief to mention as well, the Oakland fire, the tragedy that happened there. And sometimes, you know, it's difficult with difficult spaces, and it seems like the city's being difficult, saying, no, you can't live there without having the proper sprinklers and the proper code and the proper petitioning and exits and meet the fire code. But this is what can happen when you don't. And it was a situation, and more it unravels with art students and working there, but living there too. And they weren't, you know, in secret, I guess. I don't think we really know yet, but it's a reason why with a noble cause, our folks stand up and say, no, you can't live there. And so I want to just iterate that again, and what our codes are for, and what the follow-up with the codes and the inspections are. And so it's tough days out there for them. Are there other things? All right, we have public hearings today. We have 3 public hearings. One of them, the first one is vacating Sunset Boulevard north of Meriwether Street. And then our second one will be the definition of a yard from section 30-105 of our code. If you remember, we talked about the yard here several months ago, and now this comes back and cleans that up. And then the third one we have is a rezoning from C1 to CBD of 3 properties along South Sprigg there in 600 block. So we'll have those 3 hearings today, and then those corresponding, well, we have two ordinances for the definition of the yard and for the rezoning are items 22 and 23. They're the only 2 new ordinances that we have. The consent agenda, we have the second and third readings of the Board of Examiners for the renewals. Number 6 is the readdressing for Farrar Drive to denote North and South Farrar. Number 7 is no parking anytime on 4th Street for safety conditions there. Number 8 is the Southeast Missouri State Foundation. This is for the Greek Village there on 1400 block of North Sprigg. Number 9 is the chronic nuisance property ordinance that we spoke about earlier. And I mentioned that Alex had checked, and indeed they have for a decade not rent anybody out of their property. So that's a good thing. Number 10 is the record plat for Baldwin Village. There's some duplexes across the street now. Number 11 is the indoor sports complex record plat on Mid-America Crossings. Number 12 is the second, third reading for South K. This is at the Hobby Lobby property. And number 13 is the re-subdivision of lots 88, 89, and 90. That takes 3 lots down to 2 in the meadows of Whispering Oaks. Number 14 is the municipal court and municipal offices sentencing. This is that comprehensive crime bill from the comprehensive state crime bill, primarily changing the amounts of the fines. And then 15, 16, and 17, the second, third of making sure that people who are getting permits or city licenses or getting their occupancy permit for their properties have paid their bills, and so that takes care of those. The first resolution we have is number 18, and that's for neighborhood street repair for 2017. We had the first iteration of that this year, and this takes on the next concrete street repairs in the city of Cape from F. Number 19 is a professional services contract to look in our drying operation in the wastewater treatment plant. There's too much dust there, and as we've gone down that road, we have an air quality issue, and so we're asking a consultant to come in and solve that for us so that we can fix the air quality issue in the wastewater treatment plant drying operation. Number 20 is acceptance of the improvements for the water main extension. And number 21 is the acceptance of the improvements for the Seymour Greek housing. Are there any of these items you'd like to remove from the consent agenda?
I don't have any I want to propose to remove, but I'd like my votes on 8 and 21 recorded as a recusal because of my employment, and I'll mention that in the meeting as well.
Very good. Others?
On the 19 on the wastewater dust issue, is there anything related there to defective equipment or installation on that new facility at all, or?
I asked that question. I asked you, can we go back after the designer or the equipment? And this is such new technology. They did not believe that we could. Obviously, as they go through this, if they find something in that regard, then we would pursue it. That's
what we're going to find out.
Yeah, we will hopefully be able to find out from there. Don't think so. It's just such new, but certainly this will give us the expertise to be able to do it if that's the case.
Good. Thank you.
All right, we have 2 new ordinances I mentioned earlier. Those are from the hearings. First one's on the definition of the yard, and the second one is the rezoning on South Sprigg. We have 2 appointments tonight.
Show Me Center Board of Managers will be Scott Meyer, and I did contact Dennis Volink for a reappointment on the Brewery Campus Board of Managers, and he would like to be reappointed for one more term. So that would be a good appointment also. Scott Meyer, Dennis Foley.
Then your memos you have tonight, the memos coming up at the next meeting for the Commission Visitors Bureau Executive Board. This is the one that we changed a few meetings ago. We have had some people have put in for it from the hotel side. We would like to, if you know anybody from the restaurant side, we'd like to have more nominations on that side, or others as well. And then the transit financial statements are there for you, as well as the advisory board minutes. That's all I have.
Council, any other issues or questions for our study session? If not, we'll need a motion for, we do need to have a closed session for legal action. Anyone? No, legal action, litigation, confidential communication with our legal counsel and property transactions pursuant to 610-021, 1 and 2. By Gunn, seconded by Guard. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we'll stand adjourned until 7 p.m.